Rich Steves, Managing Editor at TMC here at ITEXPO Las Vegas 2013. Joining me now is Phil Harvey, Director of Corporate Communications at Metaswitch Networks. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we hear a lot of buzz terms that get thrown about, and sometimes we hear terms that seem similar or we get confused with each other. So let's start with something in that area. We hear the term software telco. We hear NFV, Network Functions Virtualization.
Right.
What are those? How are they related? How are they different?
Good place to start is that, well, the creation of a software telco is really just the evolution of your traditional telecom company, carrier. And that actually incorporates and includes network functions virtualization, which is sort of operating, it's sort of a new model of operating the telecom infrastructure, and really any infrastructure, relying more on software modules, virtual machines, and running that on commodity hardware, off-the-shelf servers. So as opposed to the model now, which is more proprietary hardware, dedicated appliances for dedicated functions, this allows you a lot more flexibility. So that's network functions virtualization, and that's one component of the evolution to a software telco. Also in that evolution will be software-defined networking, which is sort of the element of control that goes over that more flexible infrastructure. So that kind of layers on top of that. There has to be a different kind of development environment for this all to work. So the telecom carriers have to get better at fostering software ecosystems made up of their own developers, their partners' developers, and third parties who can build services on their behalf. And finally, the sort of the last piece of that is really openness. We've got to get open APIs. The telecom carriers have to open up APIs at every level of the network so that this innovation can happen, and so that as much innovation can be introduced to the carrier network, you know, as opposed to the carrier just being on the hook to build all these features and functions and services themselves.
So as we talk about these, SDN, NFV, software telco, you know, you and I have a grasp of this. We've been talking about it on TMC channels and communities for a while. But you know, as with any innovation, there's an awareness phase, there's an adoption phase. Where do you see us? Where do you see the industry in terms of these technologies, and where do you see it heading in the near future?
Yeah, I think the awareness phase is going to be ongoing, because different carriers, you know, they really are so. You know, they have their own network, they've built it their own way. You know, it's like we talk about them in generalities, but really each carrier is going to approach this at their own pace. Some are really going to be comfortable with it, and they're going to go, you know, fully into it, and within 5 years, they'll look completely different. Other carriers are going to just virtualize one thing at a time and do it mostly for the cost savings, and not really get into, you know, open source software, and not really get into you know, development communities and things like that, and not really open up a lot of APIs. You know, so these things, I guess the short answer is it really depends on the carrier and how suited they are to absorbing not just the technological change, but the cultural change that will obviously follow when you start speeding up the pace of innovation inside of these companies.
It really is a cultural shift and not just a technological shift.
Yeah, and I think it stems from, once you you know, sort of free carriers from the development cycle that they're used to, which is sort of governed by, you know, their incumbent infrastructure providers, and you give them the ability to control the pace of innovation and to, you know, throw an army of developers at a problem, or have people creating services, you know, for them on their behalf. That really does. You know, you do that several times, and that's, you know, that repetition will build a completely different culture, and they'll you know, from the top down, they'll be more tuned to the market and not tuned to the technology. And I think that's what, you know, business users at, you know, conferences like this really are looking for. Is they're looking for their providers to be more flexible. Hey, I know you sell me this speed and this service and this, but I'd kind of like to buy, you know, a little bit of that, and I want it delivered on this pipe. And that's just not possible now, you know. So I think in the future it could be, depending on the carrier, and we also have to, you know, hold open the possibility that what I would call the post-carrier future, that some carriers will simply stay with what they're doing now, They'll just continue to be pipes. They'll just continue to build a good business providing broadband, which is fine. And other types of companies, non-carriers, will deliver a lot of these services on top of that infrastructure.
Well, Phil, this is a fascinating topic. There's a lot of factors involved. We could probably talk about this for a long time, but we are running out of time.
Yep.
If people want to know more about this topic, about Metaswitch networks and how you relate to it, where can they find that information?
So the best place to go is the updates section of our website, metaswitch.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Metaswitch. You can follow me on Twitter at FuturePhil.
Great. Thanks so much, Phil.
Okay, thanks.
All right.